In this session, we'll just see how we can work with multi-record flat files, and also how we can insert multi parent and child relationships, parent and child, how we can insert the data into parent and child tables. So first, let me just verify from my end whether the database was working or not. So let me start the SQL developer. So because the what we have seen in earlier classes, the flat file was just a simple record. In that, basically one record is represents a one row. It means it's basically one object. One object is a one record. But there are some cases where we may have the multiple objects will be pertaining to one record. Let's say purchase order. The purchase order, what will be having? We are having a header information. Also, we are having the items information. Also, we are having a billing unit address. Also, we'll be having a shipping address. Like all these things will be considering as a one record or one transaction. So whenever we want to build these kind of things, and maybe these records, when we are trying to insert into a database, these all these records, each and every object may go into multiple tables. Each and every record may go into multiple tables. But how we can handle that? We don't need to put multiple database connectors to insert the records into each and every table. We can able to manage everything in one. We're going to show you how we can do this. So this was basically a sample record. This was basically what we have processed earlier. But when we have it, but if you see this record, each and every row record represents a one record, and it has only one object. So, but we'll just let me open a sample file, how the multi-record file looks like. Hmm. This is an XML file. Okay, let's open a CSV file. Okay, if you see the sample file here, here basically just the first record is showing the customer object where it has the elements like customer ID and customer name and order date. And whereas if you see the second object, this is the item ID and the unit price and the total orders. And if you see the third object, address to all, it means if you consider entire this customer, all this information will be belongs to one record. All these things will belongs to one record. One record in the sense, basically it has the customer information, and also it has the items information, also it has the address information. And all these things will be all these all if you see this one, this record has a multi object. You see a customer record here, this record is basically multi object here. So how we can process the multi objects in how we can process the multi objects into a Del Boomi. And in this case, if you just see, we maybe inserting a multiple records into a database. Multiple database tables are there. So let's see how we can insert one record into another. Let's see how each and every object will be going into different database tables, and how we can use only one database connector to be able to fulfill this task. Let's create a sample process. So let's click on create. So first let's try to read a file in the disk connector, and then we can just see how to create a profile, to how to create a flat file profile to parse the multi-record. Let's go for disk connector and just try to open this file. First, let's run this. So we can just see that we are able to read a file. Now we'll just stop the process and go ahead with the creation of a Flatfile profile. Let's go here, create the profile, okay, and then select the Flatfile profile. Let's click on here. And when you are creating each and every when you are creating each and every record, so let's take one sample file, and maybe if you have multiple records, because in this case each and every object has only just take three sample records, but there might be cases where each and every record, each and every object might be having around 100 columns. In that case it's very difficult for us to, it's a time consuming creating a manually. So maybe you can just, let's say, you can just create this as one sample file, and you can just import the sample records, and we already know how to insert the record. So let's consider some of the records looks like here. So select this as a comma delimited, and even it also has the columns. Just click on it here, click on import, click on next. But if you see how many columns we have here, first ID, customer, and order date. So this is one record. Even if you want, you can just rename the customer object. And then what we wanted to create this time we wanted to create, this was the item object. This time we want to create item object. But when you want to create a multiple things, there is an option, even you can add a child record as well as insert record, and take you have to try with these two options. How you are able to, you have to try with these two options, which one like whether child record or insert record will be satisfying, will be able to parse your particular sample file. So let's add a child record as of now. Now we can just consider this as an item object. Let's consider import. So like this, we can each and every object you can create, and let's say add another child record here. Maybe we can just put as a address, customer address, or address object. So if you see here, it has a customer object, and for the customer object I have added two child objects called one is item object, other one is address object. First let's see whether we are able to convert this particular record in XML file. Because we just add this profile as a source profile in the map shape, and just try to map this to an XML. Then we'll just see whether we're able to parse this particular file format, whether whatever the profile we created, that is able to parse the sample file how it looks like here. Let's save and close. Let's add a map shape. Let's click on choose, and then just select Flatfile profile, and then select multi-record FF. After that, let me going to create, I think I might have already the sample one. Let's see whether this or this one. Let's verify this. Yes, it has the address and all these informations. So even if you have a sample XML file, you can just able to create it. See if you maybe you can just, or else even we can add them manually. You already know how to add a manually also. So if you want to add a manually, first create a customers, and then you can add a child element here, and then rename that to customer and make this as unbounded. And after that again you can add a multi-child elements or anything, add a child element or multi-child elements, and then you can rename customer ID, all these things. After that again you add another child element, rename it to items, and then now this time we have to add a multi-child elements here, add a child elements here, so that all the elements will be added here, and then you can just make these items as repeatable again, and again address will be repeatable here. So address is going to be a single time I repeat. Items is single time, but item will be repeatable. Here the customer entire this thing, because one customer, you just take one customer object, each customer object should hold item information, also address information, also customer information, entire the customer information, customer header information. So that's why we just prepare and just try to map these fields manually. And first we'll just run this process whether you are able to parse this particular file or not. Let's map each field individually. Let's try to save and close. Let's click on OK. Let's click on save. Let's try to run this process. See, always what happens, right, in the map you'll be specifying source profile, and whatever the data it was actually passing through this map shape, and it will try to validate this input data, it will try to validate the input data against your flat file profile, a source profile. If both are matching properly, then we can just confirm that it was whatever the profile we created was properly. Let's try to verify here how our sample data looks like. So it means what we mentioned, under customer only one record, and item we have multiple records, and then we just mentioned. Let's verify how the XML file was generated. If you see customer object was took properly, then the first record what it went here, fine, and then the second record it has item ID, unit price, and total orders. But these things, this is not actually an our data item. This is actually a column header. So I wanted to ignore it here. Okay, let's verify that thing. Item 5 and then item 6. Up to this is fine because it able to identify rest of the two records except the column headers. So one action item is we have to make sure the column headers for the child object should not be populated. We have to ignore these things. Let's verify other record. Address. Yeah, this was popular. And again the same applies column headers. But if you just see here, let me just open this of XML. Let's try to minimize each and everything. How many customer object is generated? If you see 4 customer objects were generated, but as per our parts, it has to generate only 2 customer object. This is 1, 201 is 1, and this one is a 202. Okay, but let's verify whether we have, because we should not generate these many number of times. Let's open the XML file. Let's verify. Yes, customer was unbounded. Fine. Item was only single time, but item should be repeatable. Yes, fine. Then why it has generated 4 records? Let's see what it has to. Okay, items was checking each and every item. It was coming properly under this customer object. Item was coming properly. And if you see the other one, but address one has column headers as well as a data record also. If we see, but rest of it would be same items here. And address it to next record. And I wanted to ignore this one, and I want this particular record should be coming here. And and I don't want to make all this because this is all a duplicate. So I wanted to ignore it all. So let's try to modify, because this is the same thing even happened for the third and fourth customer also. So let's try to modify the profile. The first action item would be I wanted to ignore child column items and ignore column names for the column headers for the child items. So first let's see how we can do that. Go for data process, because we do have search and replace only in that particular shape. Keep child column headers. So let's try to, this was the one of select search and replace. This is what I wanted to find it out in the input document, and I wanted to replace null. Just select increment line by line. Next thing is, even I wanted to remove this column header also. Now let's try to run this process now. So now let's verify how the data was generated this time. One customer object, and this time you can just see two customer objects were generated properly. This was actually we are looking at. Under 201, you should get the item 1, item 5 and item 6. And address should be coming with this. And okay. And if you observe here for customer, and this time for second customer ID, we were getting the column headers again. Even I wanted to ignore this one. You just see whatever the customer ID was there, this was mapped to 202 customer 102 all these things. But I don't want to map this because this was an invalid one. Was invalid one. So what I wanted to do here, see even because if you just see what was the record, it was actually passing through. It was the record actually it was passing through input of the map shape here is first record column headers was there because since we have selected the Flatfile profile as a use column header checkbox, it means this in this particular record column header should be there. But we don't want to child records to be, we have to ignore the child record column headers. Yes, fine, that we already section done, we done a section replace, so column headers for the child records also went to the item as well as the address. But because and as a sample CSV file, the column header should be exist only, the column header should be occurred only once, should not repeat multiple number of times. But if you have a multi records, if you have the column numbers, column names in each and every record, so that it will be easy for us to identify where the column, where the actual object will be starting out. But that will be for reading purpose. But when we are trying to processing it, we have to skip it. So let's see how we can, even we'll try to remove this one. So what we can do, we can just go here. Let's try to run here. Let's see how the sample XML file is generated this time. This time was proper. See, let's see what it has replaced it here. Verify what input data it actually passed. So no column headers even for child, but not one two, not two, just not one. I think it's fine. But even I think it's supposed to restrict it because we have selected this particular object has the column headers. I think even if you add it, ideally if you are when you are processing a simple object record, if you don't have the column headers, what it will be do here, it will just ignore the first line as a column headers. But in this case, what happens because of the search replace, what happens if let's try to run this. You open what was the actual data it was passing through. It was passing through map shape. Here is you can just see there was a first record was going as a null, and this was since first record is not available, it was going as a null. And even the since we have selected in the plot file profile saying that the column the plot file profile what we are receiving also has the column headers. So whatever it's available in the first line, it will be taken as a column headers. But since this is a null value, it identified the column headers and it did not generate any elements. Ideally, if you don't give anything, whatever the first record will be having, that record will be identified as a column headers. But since this time we have a even one record is there, but with empty line, it just skip this one. And even because if you don't have this option, if you have this option and without this empty line, it will throw an error. Or else what it will do, whatever the first record was available, that first record will be identified as a column record, and the next record will be trying to consider as a data record, and this data record will be basically going into the columns called customer tags. So again, this will be generating improper results. So what we can do after but since we have the column headers, we have to make sure our data that was actually reaching through the map shape should has a column headers, and this column headers should not available and multiple levels. For next record should not allow, only for the first record it has to be available. So let's see how we can add this particular record.
Vema, can you show the output file?
Sorry, this is here is output. This is what XML file you want to show.
Can you show the XML format?
See, this time it was coming properly. The reason is because it has the first line as a empty line, and that is the reason it is not it is considered first line as a column headers, and it was not giving any error, and it was ignored the first line as a column headers, so it was coming properly. But if there is a possibility that you don't have a first line as a first row or a first line as a empty, then in this case it will show improper results. Because what are the, see, if we have this kind of a thing, because if you don't have a empty lines, what we can do, we can just search replace everything this one. Okay, now let's try to process this. You'll see the difference. Ideally it should throw it should give an invalid improper results, because the first line whatever it has, it identifies as a column headers. You can just see what it has took the items, because whatever the there in first line, it identified as a column headers, so it is ignored it. From here onwards trying to consider as a column headers. Since this time here the column numbers both are matched, here the customer header and items also both are column count. Here also 3 and here also 3. It did not give any error. It was just mapped all items into customer. But whereas when we have a different number, like header have 20 or column and the child has around 25, if both are different number of columns, then it will throw an error. So in that case what we can do, we'll just because how why it was generated in earlier case properly, because instead of the first line as a column header it has an empty record, so that because of that it actually generated proper. So what we can do, because we wanted to append the column headers, the customer header columns for the first record only. It should not repeatable for, should not repeat for second customer record onwards. Because how it will consider whenever we have a sample customer records here, the column headers should be available only in the first line and should not repeatable for each and every columns. That's what the same thing we'll be expecting in this year also. What happens, but here we have the column custom headers are repeatable here. We don't want these many number of times. So we cannot repeat, we don't have any option to replace from second occurrence advance. So we can do all these occurrences replace, and then again we can append this at starting of the record. Let's see how we can append starting of the record. The starting of the record, and then I wanted to get append here. How we can point out this one? uh, Whatever the first, I am just appending my column headers, and after that whatever the result I am just appending it to the I'm just preparing my column headers to the actual result. So how we can just put the result here? So in order to put the result here, we do have a functional called inbuilt function called current data. Means whatever the data that is actually flowing, that data will be populated with the function called current data. In this case, even if you have a space or if you don't have space also, still it will be generating proper result, because we by this time when it is reaching to the map shape, we do have already the first record as a column headers, and this time it will generate. If you see this one, what happens before this here is, this time the first record, since we done a search and replace, the first record it has empty record, and but we wanted to append the first record as a column headers. Let's see how this will generate. See how this has generated. Even you can write some kind of a custom script. Even you can write some kind of a custom script where you can replace all the empty line records. So now we are able to parse, it, and with this scenario we are able to see how we can differently use the data process and message shape for replace search and replacing for appending, and then we were able to insert these particular records into a database table. Let's see how we can insert all these records into different tables, all this data into different tables with one database connector. Let's see whether we have any sample script is available. Let's see what all tables are created. Let's connect to my database. Open tables. And if you see, I am just trying to insert only the two objects called customer records and also item objects. I do have two tables is been created. One is custom object. Basically, it stores the customer ID, customer name, and order date. And I do have created another table called item. And even you can add one more table called address also to capture all address information. So here item ID, unit price, and total address and customer ID. Why? And but this time in the customer record, my primary key will be created on customer ID. If you just go here on constraints, okay, in the constraint on customer ID, I have created the primary key. Whereas if you go for items, on items, it's not different. On items, In items, I have created a primary key on a column called item ID because one customer can have multiple items can be ordered. So I'll be having only one record in customer table, only one record in a customer rec, and there might be multiple records in my item for the same item. Let's say here only one customer record and it has a two items, even more items also. So and again I have another record and a table because this time all this customer information is going into one table and item information is going to one table. But how can I able to identify these two items belongs to this particular customer and the rest of the two items will be belongs to this particular customer. So I'm just created one more column called customer ID. Sorry, one more item called customer ID. So I'll be just mapping this customer ID over here. So it's not replacing because even though I selected item, it was just running. Okay. So let's see how we can. Let's try to truncate these tables before we just going here. What I'm going to do here is let's try to first generate database. Go for database connector. Since we want to go for insert, let's proceed with the send. Let's create a database connection. Plus we have script. I think even I do have some kind of script also. I think here somewhere. This script. You can just take create table customer rate has in a primary key and customer name, and even if you take table also here table I'm just creating a primary key and this is a because in this table customer ID can be a duplicate value will be there because one item two items can be belong to same customer ID, so I cannot put this a customer ID as a primary key. If you want you can just put a combination of here because one customer should not have the same item ID. One customer can have a multiple items, but customer ID and item ID combination should not be duplicate. Even you can add that kind of a combination also, primary key. Because the primary key can set for on single column or more than one column also. So let's try to create insert. Let's click on here. Let's take anyone on the table and then go with Boomi. Click on next. Let's select customer record, or maybe you can just call customer header or something. Just trying to load all the columns for this particular table. Let's click on finish, and let's try to add another because this particular statement will basically insert all the customer header information, but whereas I wanted to add another statement also here, similarly the way how we have added multiple records in Flatfile, even we can add the multiple statements also here. But this time again this statement also will go for insert statement, dynamic insert, so that if you go on here automatic table gets populated. The same thing even I will just proceed with this one also here. Okay, even if you want you can add another child statement where you can add an address also. And if you want you can just take some kind of a simple here, create a just add this one Just put remove this primary key and just repeat the same thing here. For another column, sir. City, state, country, zip. Then for city, state, for country, and then you can just put as a zip here. Yes, I think it's identifying as a column, and even you can just put state also, you can choose. And again, you just add another column here. This was another column, you can just add it because to identify this particular address which belongs to the same this particular customer. And you can just add this one also here. You can just execute here, and then yes, a table gets created, and you can just see somewhere address might have been added here. Not just click on refresh. You can just see address table here. So now what I wanted to do here is, now I do want to add a child statement called address. Where is this? Yeah. Just put here. But what I wanted to do here, I wanted to map the data from here to here. What I can do, even I can just directly ignore this. I can directly put a one map here, so that will be transforming. Even if you want to make this particular XML data also available, what we can do, you can just copy here. But what I can do, first thing, I wanted to, because I'm not disturbing the first branch, just putting this one. What I'm doing here is when I'm just executing all these records, uh, the pre-request for this thing is I wanted to remove all these things. Let's say the simple statements like program command. Let's execute. What I want, and I don't want to delete everything manually. I want to make everything for another customer underscore head. And just specify So this is what I just want to remove it. Because why I'm putting here is because I do have some of the records already in my database. I wanted to delete it. Then I can directly use a programming command. I can directly pass this one as one thing called item. This C called item. It can be address. Because this particular, because if you see this address did not have any records here. Then if you execute it here, no action will be performed. Zeros will be deleted. So even it will not give any error also. First I'm just insert deleting all these records, and then I'm going to first it will be converting into an XML profile here. An XML. After that it is clearing all the records in the table, all these three tables, and then it is going for insert into a database. Let's just try to run this. Okay, I think we have. So this was I just copy pasted this map shape and I did not map change this one because it's still showing the XML profile only. Let me just go here. Let's copy this one because I don't want to make the profiles to be duplicated. I forgot to change this one. Let's clear this. Let's select the one we just duplicated. Let's make this to database profile. This was the one just we info created using database profile. Let's click on item ID would be here, and unit price go here, and total address will go here, whereas customer ID will go here. And let's say if you are getting a country called India, okay, instead of you are getting India in the one, let's say you are just getting some kind of so what I want to do whenever I'm getting India, I just want to insert the called a country called the two letters like IN. I'm getting United States. I just wanted to insert only US. So when, even if you're just getting here, let's try how we'll modify this. So what we can do, we are going to use a lookup called cross reference here. I'll just create a entries. If I'm getting India, I'll just pass only in. If I'm getting, because I'm going to create a kind of a country to cross referencing tables. So click on here because since I don't have any cross reference table is created, I'm going to create a cross reference table here. Even you can do the same thing here from cross reference table also you can do the same thing, but it's handy if you have an option created here. So what we are doing here is because I don't want to I don't want to have these many records are available. I want to only three things I want to put. One is country code, other one is country description. And let me add the different values. If I'm getting India, I want to map IN on return. Even if I'm getting capital India also, still I want to return this. Because I'm giving all possible values. As of now, I did not enforce my database and the particular country should be send only two characters. When we creating a database table, you can just allow some of the requirements, some of the projects, they will be allowing only this particular column should go only these many characters. So in that case, you can have use some kind of cross-reference table here. And let's click on 7 plus, and I have to map it. So if I am passing a country description, let's see what we have created exactly. I think we have to rename these things. The table definitions. Country code should be country description. Let's update this. You can just see country description and country code. What I'm going to do here, if I'm getting a description here, I'm going to return only the country code here. This is the one kind of cross reference I'm doing. What I'm doing, if my parse, if my flat file coming, country description, I want to map, I want to do lookup in this cross reference table, and I want to map only the code. So rest of the things you can just map it here. This is how we can do all these mappings. So here click on save. Let's try this time. Fill the record. So already these things got executed, and you can just see this time we have inserted two records. Let's go here. You can just see it's successfully inserted. Before it inserting, it deleted all the records, so that when our process gets runs, whatever the customer headers are there, customer header should have only two records, because we have only two records, we are just passing it here. And next would be items should be 4. This one has 2, this one has 2. Go for item, you can just see two items, and these two items will belongs to the customer ID 201. These two items will belongs to the customer ID 202. And address, and if you see address also has 2, but out of this, these two should be belongs to this one address belongs to 201, and this one. But why, you just see why we are not getting the country. One is called, and there are one, we are not getting country one. Country was getting null value. Let's see. what we have added in cross reference table. We do have matched this thing. No, it is not right here. Let's go here. Let's see how this one. For the first thing, event country code description it took India. So it executing cross reference table, and we got the value output as IN. So output element country was mapped with IN. Right. Let's go with this one. Now this time it was take the India one. Oh, okay. We here did not save it. That's why you can just see the star mark here. So we have India one, but we don't have any record with the India one. That's the reason it was just given null value. But let's see if you are trying to send same record. If you are trying to send the same record, because what we are doing this time, whatever the existing data was there, that data will be refreshed with the actual data, because we do have already put the delete program commands before inserting each and everything. So by the time it is inserted successfully, we should have this country also gets populated in anything. So this is how basically we'll just insert it. And let's say if you are trying to run the same record again and again also, still there will be no change, and each and every time it will be recorded. But let's say I just wanted to modify this one called, when I am running this time, I just want to disconnect it. So I don't want to clear all these records. So let's try to refresh it here. Since we don't have a duplicate entry here, so we are just keep on adding multiple records. So for customer record, we have multiple record entries also here. Go for item, have multiple entries also here. Okay, so this is how we can basically work with multi records, and also how we can work with database parent and child relationships table. We can directly use only one
Memo,
database connector. Yeah, go ahead.
memo, if you have a primary key, how the multiplicators will insert?
Sorry.
Do we have primary key? How the multiple records will insert? Duplicate records.
Then get your primary key. See, if you don't put a primary key, it will allow duplicate. You can just see here, I did not put a primary key here on this table. You just see I did not put any primary key here. No constants defined on this table. So this is the reason it went for a duplicate. So if you allow the primary key also here, when you try to run the same record this time, it will give an error, because when you
Can you check the customer table and item table?
mhm. Yeah, this time it will give an error. See, there will be no change. You will get an error because the primary constant is there.
Okay, okay, okay.
Only the table we did not put address one, but address we may have the same address will be there, but we cannot put an address. Well, if you want, I'm just giving took some kind of sample, so you can just put all these constants, whatever. At real time, we are not going to define any kind of a table at all, so they will be giving everything. You just have to configure those tables in Boomi.
Look at the item table.
See, because what we have selected option is commit by profile. So if connector gets failed, even none of the records will be gets inserted. You see an option here, commit by profile database. What is the database? Parent and child. Just open it here. Selected commit by profile. This we have to set it because if any one of the record is getting failure and you should not allow the records should be inserted in parent and child records. If you want to allow, maybe you can just put number of count by number of rows. As many number of rows inserted, automatically you can just commit will be performed. When you have this kind of a option, commit whatever the profile was coming, if all the profile was able to populate properly. In this case, profile has the three tables. If each profile is able to proper data was inserted, then only the commit will be performed. In this case, what happens? Because the primary key, the customer also primary key is enabled constraint, and this also, because even if you have the same record was trying to mention the customer ID, it was failed with this record, and the corresponding items and address also will not be able to insert it. Now you can just change these options and you can run it. So you can just play with the number of records and then you can try that. But most of the times what we select it because the customer find their profile. So any other doubts?
Do you have any trigger file mechanism, Venu?
Sorry, retrieve.
Trigger file mechanism.
No, we don't have any option that we have to anything is there. You just have to manage from the database level.
Okay. Any DB polling option?
DB query
Uh, say for
option.
example, say for example, for every 5 minutes, I'm placing the file into source directory.
Mhm.
The DB has to the target location for every 5 minutes. Is there an option like that?
Sorry, you're in source directory.
DB polling.
In source directory, you're getting a file for every 5 minutes, and you want to process that file and you want to insert into database.
Yes, yes, yes.
So we do have
In
a
server,
scheduling.
DB
We do
polling
have a
mechanism
schedule
is there,
option.
right?
We do have a schedule option will be there, and we don't have any kind of pooling particular directory or pooling a table option in specific to Boomi. But we do have only pooling option or listen. That's what we can call it a listen. Listen option is available only for two connectors. One is for web services connector and other one is called JMS connector. Whatever you are looking as a
Um,
pooling, as soon as the particular file is recorded into generated in a particular table, your process should supposed to start. Or else if one of the record gets inserted or updated in a table, you want to start your process to be automatically pull the records. That kind of an option was not available here. And
just a second.
you have yeah, go ahead.
Not not scheduling, like triggering
No, that's what we are
for every.
trying to say, that that kind of an option was not there. So alternative thing, you have to use the scheduling option.
Okay, okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, then I think we'll close the session and I'll try to share this video as soon as possible. You can meet on.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Yep. Thank you.